The government receives 9,000 allegations of benefit fraud a year. That's 1 an hour every day. And of the 9,000 tip-offs they receive from other New Zealanders, 20% were found to have legitimacy. There's an anonymous 0800 tip line and an online form. It's easy to dob someone in, and there's no comeback if it's not true. The reason benefit fraud is a waste of taxpayer money. But one of the country's leading lawyers says what may be a greater waste of taxpayer money is how many of these allegations are investigated, at length sometimes, and found to be false. Frances Joychild says this adds to the stress and anxiety of some of our most vulnerable people, many of whom are wrongly accused. Here's Zac Fleming.
We have got to change the system. The way beneficiaries are being treated is close to sadistic.
Strong words from a woman who's seen firsthand the Ministry of Social Development's bad side. Today, Frances Joychild QC is referring directly to allegations of benefit fraud. Figures released exclusively to Checkpoint under the Official Information Act reveal MSD received nearly 9,000 allegations in the 2017 financial year. Two-thirds, nearly 6,000, were investigated, and of the 9,000, only 20%, or 1,800, were found to be valid. This means 4,200 people who did nothing wrong were subjected to an MSD investigation and cleared.
So many resources being put into people with a gripe about anything, dobbing in these vulnerable people and subjecting them to the misery of an MSD benefit fraud investigation.
Those 4,200 people are clear evidence the motives of the accusers need to be scrutinised, Ms Joychild says. Because when they're not, it can result in 8.5 years of hell.
It took 8 years for me to have an impartial hearing through all of my experience with WINS, with case managers, with the Benefits Review Committee, with the National Fraud Investigation Unit, with the Social Security Appeal Authority. I was constantly facing a Goliath who had no interest in listening to me.
An abusive ex-partner dobbed in this woman, who can only be identified as Miss F because she has name suppression, to MSD's benefit fraud line.
And he later apologised and acknowledged that they were all lies that he'd told. But that had absolutely no impact on MSD. They got the allegation and they went for it.
Went for it all the way to the High Court, arguing that the loans Miss F got to pay her bills counted as income. MSD claimed she owed more than $100,000. The High Court yesterday plainly said it was wrong, ruling that loans are not income because they have to be paid back.
He made 2 false allegations, and I've looked at the file notes on these, created a story that he was at a market and he was watching her all day and she seemed to be earning a lot of money and he was just a taxpayer worried about taxpayers' money. And another one that he'd heard through a friend that this woman was buying and selling houses for profit. And all the time it was him. It was obvious when you looked at it that this person had a personal gripe.
And to your knowledge, did they ever look into his personal reasons for alleging the fraud?
Never. Didn't ask, just took everything he said at face value, then used the enormous resources of the Benefit Fraud Unit to launch into this person and turn her life into hell.
The Ministry of Social Development wouldn't front for an interview today. In a statement, it said most of the allegations it receives are anonymous, so motive can't be explored. But it refused to answer whether it explores motive for allegations that aren't anonymous. Miss F is not an isolated case. Miss Joychild says she has another client who was accused of benefit fraud by a man her daughter had accused of sexual assault. And
another person also, once again in a very violent relationship, the partner came and went as he pleased, refused to contribute a cent to her child. She had no other choice but to get the benefit. And he dobbed her in as soon as he got with another woman. It is not uncommon at all.
Then, if MSD decides they owe money, a long, hard fight is required to prove otherwise. Miss Joychild has been contacted by several people since her victory in the High Court, including one advocate who...
He had successfully managed to waive an $86,000 debt that wasn't justified.
So here we have 2 recent cases, together worth nearly $200,000, where had the accused rolled over, they'd likely be in debt for the rest of their lives, because remember, these are beneficiaries. in debt for the rest of their lives when they shouldn't be.
It's time for this government to do a complete independent review of all the debts. It's got to be done by external people. That's the problem, that there's not enough external accountability with this department.
If not that, Checkpoint asked MSD if it would at least look to find historical cases where overpayments had been found due to loans, in light of yesterday's High Court ruling. MSD didn't answer the question. For Checkpoint, Zac Fleming.